the NBA is they're investigating the Mavericks. They launched an investigation on the Mavericks after the matchup on Friday versus the Bulls because they want to know the motivations behind their actions of sitting Kyrie Irving,
I wonder.
Josh Green, Tim Hardaway, Maxi Kleber, and Christian Wood. They want to understand why a team that has Luka and Kyrie would just not play them with 2 games left in the regular season. The NBA is just dumbfounded by this idea that a team would sit stars. They've never seen this before, and the Mavericks are the first team to ever do it. So they're launching an entire investigation to get to the bottom of this. And
totally off brand.
Oh my goodness. And listen, I will say this. I feel bad for the fans that paid for the tickets. But listen, if you're a fan, you have to be a smart fan and not a stupid fan, all right?
You do.
Because I understand that nowadays everybody wants to just put it in a vacuum of, listen, fans deserve to, they deserve to watch great competitive basketball. I heard that the second level seat, this 200 level seats for Dallas were like $100 to get in. And everybody's like, oh, listen, this is why there should be no tanking because these fans are paying hard-earned money. Well, listen, motherfucker, you could have not paid the money to go to the game. You probably had an idea.
Don't do that.
They were tanking.
Don't do that.
Like, it's just, I understand, like, it's a bit harsh, but listen, all it takes is an article. All it takes is an interview to listen to Jason Kidd to know that Luka wasn't going to play past the first quarter. So you did that to yourself. You did that to yourself. Yeah. That's why I don't have much sympathy for that, because ultimately teams are a business and they run their teams like a business. Everybody knew, and we've I brainstormed this idea a couple episodes ago that the Mavericks should possibly tank and get that top 10 pick. They should. It's because it's the best thing for them organizationally. It makes the most sense. And if Kyrie decides to stay and they have a top 10 pick, it'll be more talent on their already not a lot of talent roster. Now, the difference between the Mavericks tanking and other teams tanking is that they openly admitted it. So Jason Kidd openly admitted that the Mavericks not playing their players was an organizational decision. And I think it was a bit cowardice of Jason Kidd to act like he wasn't in on the decision, because I think he definitely was. But ultimately, why is this where the NBA draws a line? Why is the Dallas Mavericks where the NBA draws a line? With 2 games left in the season, them sitting out multiple starters and only playing Luka 1 quarter is such a big deal, when it was already going to be tough for them to get the 10th seed in the Western Conference. You ask any Dallas Mavericks fan, would you rather get the 10th seed, ultimately face the Nuggets in the first round and get bounced of the playoffs or the play-in, or would you rather have a top 10 pick in the NBA draft? I think everybody would say a top 10 pick in the NBA draft. Yet the NBA has launched this investigation when Portland, 2 weeks before the Blazers were officially eliminated from the play-in, they sat out and shut down Dame. Dame basically openly admitted that he doesn't want to be a part of a rebuilding team. And the Blazers were openly tanking. Like, okay, they didn't outright have a meeting and press conference that they were tanking, but they basically were. Like, we're not stupid here. They were tanking. And the Jazz, Colin Sexton missed 20 straight games after the All-Star break. They were in prime playing position. Lauri Markkanen was missing every other game. They started playing THT 30-plus minutes. Chris Dunn came out of nowhere, and he started
so competitive without Markkanen and Kessler.
Chris Dunn was crazy.
THT was kind of hooping.
Chris Dunn was
like 22.5 points on Boom Fantasy. Like, what the fuck am I looking at?
Chris Dunn was cooking the Lakers low key.
The Jazz were clearly tanking. The Blazers were clearly tanking, and they were tanking with weeks left in the NBA season. Yet when it's the Mavericks, when there's just 2 games left in the schedule, now we're launching an investigation. I think it's ridiculous. I think that ultimately NBA teams have to understand that getting a top pick, it's as bad as it sounds, the NBA incentivizes losing. They do, because the worst teams get the best picks. And it's like that with the NFL. That's why we see teams openly tanking the NFL as well, because they get the top picks in the draft. And for the Mavericks, it was between them getting bounced in the play-in of the first round or them getting a top 10 pick. And you take the top 10 pick 10 times out of 10. There's no doubt about it.
So couple statements to rebuttal against what you're saying. You made fair points. Let's say you bought the ticket the day before, 2 days before. You could do a little bit of reading. But a lot of these people are season ticket holders. They go to every single game. These guys have these tickets far in advance. It's a bad beat for them, where they had been planning on this, going to this game for a while, and then suddenly now the player that you are ultimately going to see doesn't suit up. Another reason why the league is upset is because Luka's box office. The league wants Luka Doncic in the playoffs. Luka Doncic in the playoffs means more money for the league and the players as well. So I understand that point too. And the fact that Dallas and Luka will not be in the play-in, it's unfortunate, especially because NBA is trying to build up the play-in tournament, and it was a huge thing for that for the fact that LeBron and Steph Curry were one of the first to be in the play-in, and to exactly John Morant's another one too, where they're trying to build up the play-in and start to make it mean something. Of course, we already understand it means something, but the Mavs basically said, screw the play-in. This doesn't mean anything for us. It's not going to do anything for us. But listen, if I'm the Mavs, I agree with you. I understand your decision. I would have done the same thing. If I have a chance to be a top 10, to have a top 10 pick, I'm making that decision as well. I said it on the show too. I would tank if I was the Dallas Mavericks, but I understand the heightened attention that the Mavericks are getting because of who's on the team. Now, you mentioned it perfectly about the Blazers. Damian Lillard was shut down for the last 2 weeks. You go on Google and you try and find why Damian Lillard was not playing. They give you a reason. It was a quote-unquote calf injury. We all understand that was some calf. It's calf, truthfully. Damian Lillard was putting up unbelievable numbers consistently, night in, night out. And then suddenly they realized that they weren't going to be competing for the play-in, and they said, Damian, we're not going to risk putting you in harm's way. Similar here, where it was just the last few games, and it's a little bit more heightened because Dallas had an active chance of making the play-in. And again, Luka will not be in the play-in, will not be in the playoffs. That hurts numbers, hurts ratings. It hurts a lot of the fans a lot of new fans, their favorite basketball player is Luka Doncic. For him to not make it into the playoffs is going to be a huge blow for the NBA. So I understand why they are upset. As for Jason Kidd coming out and saying that this was an organizational decision, I get it. I'm not trying to have blame for us missing the playoffs, although he is getting blamed because of the rotations that he put out, no doubt about it. His lack of playing Jaden Hardy as well. There's reasons why Jason Kidd should have blame. But in this specific situation, I understand you're right, taking the quote-unquote coward's way out, because I don't want people to go in and say that this was my decision to sit Luka Doncic. I didn't want to put him in harm's way. You can sit there and acknowledge, say, hey, organization didn't want me to do this. Organization wants to have a better solution for us in the long term. My job, I'm not having to be put on the line. I'm not having my reputation put on the line as somebody who's in agreement with tanking. So I understand where Kidd was coming from, but ultimately, I think the Mavs made the right decision. Whether it's going to lead to an investigation, one that could lead to repercussions, they're not taking their first round pick away. I don't think so.
No,
but I don't see that happening. So I'm okay with it. If I'm the Mavericks, you did a good job. Hopefully you would secure that top 10 pick, and hopefully, of course, Kyrie Irving does decide to stay with you in this offseason. But if I'm the Mavericks, that's my bigger concern, not this tanking investigation. The big concern is whether Kyrie Irving will be on my team next season or not.
Drew, here's
I don't
my
think anyone would
rebuttal
really
to that.
care. So go ahead.
Sorry, Juz. I just want to mention something about the ticket thing. I'm not going to buy Week 17 tickets to the Jets.
Interesting. I'll tell you what. I had tickets for the Lakers versus Knicks months before I even had the idea that LeBron James would even be in consideration to pass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at that time.
The Jets also don't have Luka Doncic, by the way.
No, I know, but I'm saying
Zach Wilson.
mostly
Yes.
when you buy tickets at the end, of regular season, it's a huge risk. You're not buying week 18 tickets to the Chiefs and the Bills once they clinch the playoff spot, because you're gonna see Matt Barkley and fucking Chad Henne. You're not doing that. So with the Mavericks, I think if you were a fan of this team, then you kind of knew it was trending this way. And if you're a season ticket holder, well, you got to see 40 other games. Like, this one wasn't the make or break one that I'm like, okay, like, it's about time fans, start getting reimbursed for this stuff, because ultimately I think that every Mavericks fan is happy with this decision of getting this top pick. Well, they should be.
And it's not fair because obviously you should be able to get tickets whenever you want, but it's the reality of the NBA. Like, if you're getting tickets 2 months out in advance, this is potentially going to happen unless you just don't watch the NBA at all, and maybe your son likes it and you don't really pay attention to it. Maybe that's an excuse. But if you're a real NBA fan, I'm not getting tickets 2 months in advance because I don't know who's going to be hurt. I'm not getting tickets on a back-to-back game because some guys might be resting. So I think there's a lot of things you could look at as an individual and say, how can I avoid this situation? And Joel's right. When you're going to game 80, 81, 82 of the regular season, there is a strong chance that your favorite player is going to be sitting, or in Luka's case, plays for a quarter and ends up coming out for the rest of the game. I think the biggest issue here is what Jason Kidd said, and basically saying that this is coming from upstairs, it's coming from the front office.
Facts.
If he didn't say that, I don't think the NBA has this investigation at all, truthfully, because you have these conversations with Dame and with the Jazz, what they had going on. And you had the Wizards and Bulls game. I know they were locked in, but the Wizards Bulls, the Bulls and Hawks, whoever it was, and they said all of their starters a couple of days ago where we're locked in, we're not going to play anybody, and people are in the same situation, but no one's batted an eye. The fact that Jason Kidd went out there and basically just told the entire world, Mark Cuban told me to make sure nobody is playing, that's why the NBA has an issue. And they have a right to have that issue because it could be done under wraps, in secrecy, and everyone knows, but no one goes out and admits it. But once the head coach of a team goes out in public, he says that, the NBA has to respond. And it's inconsistent, it doesn't make sense, and all the teams do it. But at some point, you kind of have to say, we have to put a stand to this if you're the NBA and kind of save face in a sense. Because if you just let that go by, then I think there's going to be bigger issues down the road. For the Mavericks, I never thought they would go this route. I never thought Mark Cuban would actually say, fuck it, we're going to sit Luka and Kyrie and these guys and purposely lose games. I just honestly didn't think that was Mark Cuban's personality, right? When you see him on Shark Tank and all these interviews, he's a alpha male, a guy that wants to go and get it and win. And that's kind of the opposite move that he made here. I think for the Mavericks, though, it probably isn't the best interest long-term. You go up against the Nuggets round one, that's a sweep or 5 games at most. This team is not built to beat the Denver Nuggets in the 7-game series. So you get your top 10 pick. It's not going to go to the Knicks most likely. There's a small chance that happens. And it's probably the best long-term solution. But I understand the NBA having a safe face and saying they're launching an investigation. They're not going to find anything. Maybe at worst they find the team $100,000 or something. But no picks are going to get stripped, I don't think.
Dehls, the way they got Luka was by tanking.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing.
2018. This was the only decision for Dallas. At first, like many people, I said, you don't sit Luka because he's not going to let that happen. But organizationally, they probably thought he was cool with it. It makes sense. And now in the offseason, they're going to have a top 10 pick to either draft a player, draft and develop, or parlay that into some assets. I just still can't get over the fact that they didn't make the playing tournament this year.
It's like someone told you that the Mavericks weren't good, John.
The Mavericks are not. The Mavericks are not bad though. The Mavericks have the most. The Mavericks. Listen, I know that it's easy to be like, oh, listen, the Mavericks are just this trash team, whatever. They're not. They had the most. They've had the most losses in clutch games this season. They were in the most. They were in the most clutch games this season, and they down the stretch they lost 14 games in a clutch. Now we can talk about the Mavericks all we want, but the truth is that they were a top 10 team in terms of offensive rating. Their defense never got better. They were a bottom 4 team since the trade deadline. But the truth is that they were just not able to execute in the fourth quarter. I thought that they still had a chance though.
I'm so confused.
Let me ask you a question. No, let me ask you a question.
Supposed to have the best coaches in the game.
If the Lakers were the Dallas Mavericks, are you saying they're not a bad team?
Fuck.
No,
Joel.
Listen, Drew. You got me. I'm not saying that the Mavericks are this great team or a good team.
Come on.
I'm just saying that every single game they have been in, you were the same person that told me that when the Lakers were the 13th seed that, okay, we're bad right now, but all of the games we're playing are really close and we could win all of them. The same thing with the Dallas Mavericks.
We did though. We ended up doing that.
Down the stretch, you had your wins for sure. The Mavericks have been in almost every game. They just lose close. And I'm not saying they're a good team. I'm just giving context to the losses. It's not like they're getting blown out the water. They're competing for sure.
Well,
they have a great offense, but the issue had always been the lack of defense. And Riv, you're not out of the blue either.
no,
buddy.
I was about
You're not out of the blue either, buddy.
I-
Did you see what King's Twitter was doing to you and John?
Ooh,
They were quote tweeting. They were like, delete this podcast. Why is this post still up? Force Sabonis right.
I had nothing to do with that. I had nothing.
Well, listen, I was
the force Sabonis right. Absolutely, John. With all
facts.
respect, I don't know
that
what
was
you were
100%,
thinking.
Mr. Tortorelli.
I don't know what you're thinking, but Riv, you are adamant. Huh?
know what I-
we
Are you
need
stupid?
we need
Calling me stupid on this
Can I
this
speak?
take.
we need to
Yeah, of
give John
course,
an
Riv.
assistant head coaching job to scheme up against Sabonis in the playoffs.
He does
Correct.
steal well, but I mean, a 10-second clip will send you a lot of different ways, and ultimately, yeah.
It's a part of the game, John. It's part of the game.
It is.
Actually,
It is.
a couple Kings fans are cool with me because I admitted I was wrong, and I don't give a fuck because I don't have no love for that. I can care less whether I was wrong or not. They're not good. I'm not going to go play the Joel route and say they were in close game. They lost. They're not good. They ended up not being in top 10. They're not even in the play, and it's really actually sad as shit that nobody here
They're
could picture
dog
them.
do.
Nobody here could picture them not being in a play-in. Like
Play-in,
not
absolutely
even being
not.
in a play-in
Absolutely not.
was kind of crazy. I didn't see that coming. This investigation is dumb. This shit is so stupid. I get what Dehls is saying, like they shouldn't say it to the public, but Kid was being honest. And let's be realistic. Fans know what they're doing. Fans have, if you're a fan of the NBA, you have caught on to the benching and the sitting and the tanking. It's pretty much evident. We know what you're doing already. Like you said with the Dame shit, they sat him 3 weeks ago. We knew the vibe. We knew what was going on. Utah had Laurie in and out the lineup every other day. We knew the antics. So, if you're a fan of the NBA, you kind of already know the antics. It's okay to admit it. We don't care. We understand it. And the Mavs weren't going anywhere. And just to him to play in the first quarter was really weird. But nonetheless, they weren't going anywhere. The direction was smart. If you're an organization, you had to find a way to salvage the season. And I think getting a top 10 pick or getting yourself closer to a top 10 pick, assert yourself at least you can get something out of the season. Kyrie may leave, but you have a top 10 pick. But this ultimately, this investigation is stupid, bro.